I like to think I come with the same passion and same tenacity that I had in the very beginning of my career. There's still days I wake up and I'm like, I'm a lawyer. That's wild. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's an exciting thing, and it's something I still get excited for.
Welcome to another edition of the Getting Personal podcast from Ankin Law, where we introduce you to people who work here in this Chicago personal injury law firm. We're happy to feature one of our long-standing attorneys here at Ankin Law. This is attorney Josh Rudolphi in our workers' compensation department. Josh, thank you very much for coming on this edition of Getting Personal.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Josh, let's go ahead and start with your story. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? Give us some background on yourself.
I'm from Glenview, from the northern suburbs. Went to Glenbrook South High School, which is a rival of Howard's old alma mater. So I used to play against them in baseball all the time. Grew up there, played ball, and actually that got me into college. So I wound up going to Butler on a scholarship, full ride. Luckily, I got the scholarship. Otherwise, I don't know what college would have looked like otherwise. Played ball in college until I hurt my shoulder. And that's when kind of the law was presented to me by my advisor. So that's kind of the route that I took to get here.
Interesting. Did you have any interest in law before the advisor mentioned it? How did that come up?
I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the process of, applying to law schools, taking the LSAT, things like that. So my advisor kind of said, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? And I took the LSAT, and then I got the bug. I got bit.
What was it like when you first got interested in the law? Was that something you were expecting at all, or were you just kind of going into it with kind of an open mind?
I had no idea, quite honestly. I took the LSAT. I got into John Marshall, which is now UIC. And again, like when going into this, I had no idea what it took to become a lawyer. Everybody where I was from, had like a relative or knew somebody who was a lawyer or had some sort of relationship. I never knew that could be me.
Let's go ahead and go back a little bit because you talked about some of your baseball career. You were a pitcher. What did baseball mean to you early in your life?
To me, it was kind of the ticket. That's how I was going to, get to college. And I never had any plans other than playing ball. So, when I hurt my shoulder, it was kind of, okay, what do we do now? And luckily I had a great advisor at Butler who said, think about the law. And I looked into it a little bit more. I came back to Chicago and I fell in love with it.
When you hurt your shoulder, when did that happen? What year did that happen?
So that happened my freshman year. My freshman year, I was put in the starting rotation. I was warming up for the conference championship actually against UIC. We were playing in Dayton. I was in the bullpen and something in my left shoulder just popped. And then anything I threw, no matter how hard I tried to throw it, was not anything over 65 miles an hour. So we knew something was wrong right away. Opted to have the surgery. Came out of it throwing a little bit harder, but not really having any idea where the ball was going. So, as a lefty, I was graced with the gift of being able to put the ball anywhere I wanted it, changing speeds and having movement. And then after surgery, it was kind of very difficult to have that pinpoint control.
How difficult was that for you to give that up and have to pivot to something else?
It was difficult. There's a lot of time of uncertainty of not really knowing what I was going to do. And then, like I say, I was fortunate enough to have a great advisor at Butler who was kind of like, look, this door closed, but here's some more that could open for you.
This is going to sound simple, but what is it about the law that attracted you to the law, that you said, hey, this is not just a suggestion from an advisor, but hey, this is a career path, this is a new passion for me?
I took the LSAT, I went to Marshall, and like I say, I sat down, I remember the first day in my torts class, and they started throwing around terms like negligence and things like that. I'm like, okay, this all makes sense. And everything started to click. And for whatever reason, I loved it. I loved going to class. I loved meeting the professors. I loved reading the cases, briefing the cases, things like that.
How did you end up here at Ankin Law?
So I actually interviewed twice. I interviewed first where my schedule didn't really allow me to be a clerk. And then I interviewed a second time, which I always joke around with Howard because he left in the middle of the interview for about 15 minutes, and I just sat in the conference room. After I was hired as a clerk, I clerked in the comp department. I was the only one. There were only about 7 people at the office at that point. And Howard told me at the end of it, I don't have a position for you, but, we appreciate you working here as a clerk. And then by the end of, I graduated, and he told me, he goes, look, you work great and you forced your way in. I don't have any choice but to hire you. And that's kind of how I came on. And I've loved it ever since.
Fantastic. I want to ask you about that 15 minutes. What was that like, just sitting there waiting in the interview?
I just kind of sat there. I remember hearing the phones ring at the old office, and I was hoping he would just come back.
What's your impression of Howard? How would you describe maybe meeting Howard, and how would you describe Howard Ankin? Because obviously people who watch this see him on all the advertisements. Those who he's represented know him. How about as an employee? What stood out to you about Howard maybe that day and as you've gone here through the years?
I've known Howard now for over 17 years, which is just wild to say out loud. I think the one thing I'll say is he is very passionate. He is somebody that, really actually truly cares. And maybe that doesn't come across in advertising, and it's not something you can know without actually knowing the person, but he truly does care.
What are some of the things that you think he's taught you about the law? Obviously you've worked here for a very long time. What are some of the things that he's given you, some advice that you've been able to take in your own practice?
I mean, besides, the day-to-day handling of cases and what work comp law actually is, the big thing, the intangible thing is dealing with clients and understanding clients. And he's given me a newfound way of understanding what issues they're actually having without them saying it. And I think that's something that takes years and years to perfect.
We have a theme here, injury law made personal. Part of that is dealing with clients and learning how to deal with them, the good and the bad. Can you explain to those who maybe are not familiar with law how you do that? And is that something you just got to learn through years and years and clients and clients?
It takes years of practice without having like a mentor like Howard or even Scott Goldstein here in the office. You pick things from other people and you use that and kind of meld your own way of practice. And everybody practices differently. It doesn't matter who you are, you're always going to be different because everybody's personality is different. So putting your own personal touch on the way you handle matters, I think, is very important.
You've been here since 2009, correct?
As a lawyer, 2009. I was licensed in 2009.
What are some of the things that still motivate you in your practice now that did back then? What is it that still keeps you going every day? Because obviously being a lawyer, it's a hard job. What is it that motivates you every day? And has that changed at all since 2009?
I think I'm still as motivated as I was then. When I came in as a clerk, it was mostly, I want to force my way in and get a job, and it worked. And I like to think I come with the same passion and same tenacity that I had in the very beginning of my career. There's still days I wake up and I'm like, I'm a lawyer. That's wild. It doesn't make sense to me, but it's an exciting thing, and it's something I still get excited for every day.
And that passion probably makes it easier for you to get up every day and keep going and keep representing clients, I assume.
Absolutely.
Josh, as we look for it, I always kind of, in this podcast, look for memories. And I know one time you had talked about it with my coworker, Eric. Your first time in court, what do you remember about that time?
I went, and there were a couple times that I went to court before I was actually licensed. And so what you have to do is you have to give this little spiel to the judge and say, look, I passed the bar, I promise. I'm just not licensed yet. There were a couple times that I did that, a couple things that I covered for Mr. Ankin in real estate court and in foreclosure court, because I clerked there for a judge when I was in law school. Going in and going before the same judge that you clerked for, who's now on the appellate court. As soon as you walk in, he's got a big smile because he's proud of you. And I picked up a settlement check in court for Telly one time, and the only thing the judge shook my hand and said, welcome to the practice, glad to have you. And it was very nice.
What did that mean to you, just to have, especially with a connection there?
It was like being given the key to a club. And it's something that I try to instill in all the young lawyers is, look, you're here. You've got the same slip of paper that I have, the same skill set, the same ability, and hopefully, you're going to have the same opportunities.
You mentioned young lawyers. What do you tell young workers' compensation lawyers who come through here? Maybe you're just out in public, or that you go to any kind of function. What is it that you tell them about the law in your view and how to succeed in it?
Be passionate. If you're not going to be passionate, you shouldn't be here. And you're going to figure out what works for you. And my advice is everyone you speak to, treat them as a resource. Whether that's you're talking to a defense attorney, you're talking to a judge, you're talking to a senior partner, you're talking to a client. Use everybody as a resource.
One thing I think that Howard has told me about as somebody a little bit new to the law is that you keep learning every day. What are some things that you feel like you keep learning about or keep trying to improve on as you go through your practice?
I think it's just staying current with the law and trying to keep up the same, energy and passion day after day. I mean, the good thing about work comp law, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing, but it's a thing, is you experience something different every day. It's not, you come in and you're moving the file from one side of the desk to the other. You are going to have a different situation that, I talk to other lawyers in the office that we've never had before. And it comes up a lot. And it's very exciting. And it's, kind of doing the hive mind of figuring out how we're going to handle this and move forward. It's a fun thing to do.
You have a unique perspective as you saw the firm when it was smaller. Where obviously the firm now is about 100 people, a big office in downtown Chicago. What has it meant for you to see the firm grow to where it is today?
To me, it's been exciting. When we first started, I think I was the fourth or fifth lawyer total. Seeing it now and seeing what it's been built into and being along for the whole process of it, it's been quite the evolution. But the fact of the matter is you still have the same personalities that were there on day one. And it is personal. And it is something that I'm proud to have been a part of building.
We have the injury law made personal. How is it that Howard and maybe other lawyers have been able to make that mantra come true through all these years?
I think in the people that we have brought into what we call the Anken Law family, I think we're bringing in the right people, and I think the people really care. And you can't just plug anybody in, a warm body in. You've really got to know that they are going to get, rowing in the right direction and rowing with everybody else. And I think the people that we have brought in have done that.
Let's go back to baseball, but I assume you watch the game a lot. I guess, are you still a big fan? Do you still go out to games a lot and you still kind of partake as much as you can in the game?
I do. I find myself yelling at the TV, especially when somebody misses their spots or walks somebody. I still get frustrated with that, but I like following the Cubs. I live in the South Loop, so there's a hop, skip, and a jump to White Sox games as well with my kids, and it's fun.
Do you balance between the two teams? Is there one in particular you like more? Or?
I've always been a Cubs fan.
Awesome.
I always will be.
What do you think this year? 10 years from the World Series, you think they've got a shot to at least make a run at the Dodgers?
I think we've got a lot of things to figure out. I caught a little bit of the highlights yesterday. There's a lot of question marks.
We shall see how that plays out, but for right now, we've enjoyed having you on with this episode of Getting Personal Podcast from Anken Law with attorney Josh Rudolphi. You can see this full episode up on YouTube. We'll also have all of the clips from this on our social media. We invite you to follow, invite you to also check out some of our older episodes where we introduce you to those who make things work here at Anken Law. I'm Larry Hawley. Have a wonderful day.